Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE and see how this particular phone holds up in the later part of 2023. Now, I will definitely tell you, I love this phone a lot. I think it had a lot of capability and a lot of quality when it first came out, and I still think it's like completely worth buying for the most part. However, there is kind of a little bit of a flip-floppy thing going on here, because this wouldn't be the first phone I'd recommend people to buy. I would much rather recommend people to buy something like Samsung Galaxy S23 FE, or maybe even like a Galaxy S22, like one of those types of devices. This one I still think is good, but like I said, you're better off buying one that's probably still more supported, with software and has a longer lifespan ahead of it. But this isn't like a terrible device either. Now, starting off with the outside, this type of device I think still looks fairly good for the most part. 6.5 inch, Super AMOLED display, 120 Hz, and I think this is a pretty good device when it comes down to it. I think it has a small amount of bezel around it, which is really nice to have. And I think beyond that, there's not a lot to complain about here. A little bit of bezel around it, and I still think it's a very, very decent display for the type of panel this type of device is. Now on top of that, you're getting a USB Type-C port on the bottom. You're still getting a micro SD card slot on this phone too, which is genuinely so cool. Having a micro SD card slot is amazing, and personally for me, when I have this type of capability, it actually is a super cool thing to have from this type of device. So from that type of situation, from that perspective, that's another awesome thing that I like here as well. Now on top of that, with this type of device, you are getting that plastic back, which wasn't the best thing ever. Having the plastic back can be kind of a turn off for some people. And personally for me, I prefer not having a plastic back. I prefer having a glass back, especially a frosted glass back. But again, what are you going to do? There's not much you can kind of do about it from that perspective as well. Triple camera setup on the top left, wireless charging, reverse wireless charging here too. And overall, it's a very, very good looking phone. I think this phone looks very solid. I haven't had too much to complain about here from like that perspective, but I do think it's a pretty good, looking, feeling device when it comes down to it. Now, on top of that, I will also say that the camera of this thing is still fairly good. You're getting 4K at 60 on the front and the back, which is also like a very, very nice thing to have. So I think it's awesome. I think it's a very good, capable lens. And I think that in and of itself is another very cool thing going on here too. Now, on top of that, I would also say that the, quality of the software isn't the best right now. And this is probably one of the weirder things going on for this particular phone. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the S20 FE is kind of done getting software support. We don't really know how much longer this thing's going to be lasting from that perspective. And I would not recommend people to buy a phone if it's no longer going to be supported with software, or if it's no longer going to be good. And that's kind of the problem here. When you're going to be buying a phone, when you're getting a phone, you don't want to buy a phone that's like, kind of already outdated with software. And that's kind of what's going on here. So what I'd probably recommend thinking about here is that if you're planning on buying this phone, just know that it's kind of done getting software, and it's probably not going to have that much longer of a lifespan ahead of it from that perspective either. Now, in terms of performance, I've always felt like the performance of this phone was actually pretty solid. So you're actually getting that Snapdragon 865 chipset inside with 8 gigabytes of RAM on the Type 2 model, but it does go down to 6 gigabytes of RAM. And personally for me, like I mentioned, I actually do kind of feel like that this phone's performance is actually pretty decent for how old this phone is. And I think that's a very, very solid thing kind of coming around here. Now, this is not a perfect performing phone. It has lots of issues and lots of problems. Well, no, I wouldn't even say that. It doesn't have lots of issues and lots of problems. It's just an interesting device when it comes down to it. But I would still say the performance of this phone is not the best right now, but it's good, and it's probably more of a pro than a con for this phone in this day and age. So to kind of sum it up, what I'll definitely tell you is the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE is a fairly solid phone. I think it's a good phone, but if you want a device that's actually going to still be, supported with software and have a lifespan ahead of it, this is probably not a device you want to go and buy. This is probably the device that you want to kind of avoid, at least as far as I can tell. So that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.